The mining station orbited a dead star, its metal corridors humming with the sounds of 1,000 different species going about their daily business. Kethlar had been hunting here for 3 cycles now, and his patience was wearing thin. The Zephyrian predator stood nearly 8 feet tall, his obsidian exoskeleton gleaming under the artificial lights. 4 arms moved with practiced precision as he checked his equipment one final time. His primary hunting blade sang as he drew it from its sheath, a monomolecular edge that could slice through titanium like paper. The weapon had tasted the blood of 47 different species across 12 star systems. Today, it would taste its 48th. The target had been chosen carefully. A Thraxian merchant, fat with profit from the outer rim trades, traveling alone through the lower maintenance sectors. Perfect prey for someone of Kethalar's reputation. He was known throughout the galaxy as the Shadow of Zephyr, a title earned through decades of perfect kills. No target had ever escaped him. No witness had ever lived to identify him. The merchant should have passed through Section C7 10 minutes ago, but there was no sign of the blue-skinned Thraxian anywhere. Kethalar's secondary eyes scanned the crowd flowing through the main concourse, while his primary vision stayed locked on the maintenance tunnel entrance. Humans brushed past him, small, pink-skinned creatures that barely reached his shoulder. They paid him no attention, which suited his purposes perfectly. A soft chime echoed through the station's communication system, followed by the synthetic voice of the automated announcer. Attention all residents and visitors. Due to a minor atmospheric processing issue in Section C7, all traffic is being rerouted through the main concourse. We apologize for any inconvenience. Kethalar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. His anonymous tip to station security about a suspicious atmospheric reading had worked perfectly. Now his target would have to come through this crowded area, making the kill more challenging but also more public, exactly what his employer wanted. The consortium didn't just want the Thraxian dead, they wanted other merchants to see what happened to those who tried to undercut their prices. The crowd thickened as beings from dozens of worlds moved through the concourse. Kethlar spotted his target emerging from a side corridor, the distinctive blue skin and elaborate head crest of a successful Thraxian trader, unmistakable even in the crush of bodies. The merchant clutched a small case to his chest, probably containing the quantum-encrypted data cores that the consortium wanted destroyed along with their owner. Kethlar began moving through the crowd with the fluid grace that had made him legendary. His species had evolved on a world where stalking was an art form, where the ability to move unseen meant the difference between eating and being eaten. The blade remained hidden beneath his travel cloak, but his fingers caressed its handle with anticipation. 50 meters. The Thraxian stopped at a food vendor, examining some kind of roasted insect delicacy. Perfect. A stationary target always made for a cleaner kill. 40 meters. A group of Altarian diplomats blocked his path momentarily, their tall forms swaying as they walked. Kethlar slipped between them like smoke, his footsteps silent on the metal decking. 30 meters. His target moved away from the food vendor, case still pressed protectively against his chest. The merchant seemed nervous, constantly looking over his shoulder. Good instincts, but they wouldn't save him. 20 meters. Kethlar's hand closed around the blade's grip. In one fluid motion, he would draw the weapon, close the distance, and strike. The monomolecular edge would slice through the Thraxian's neck before the merchant even knew he was under attack. The crowd would scatter in panic, and by the time station security arrived, the Shadow of Zephyr would have vanished into the maintenance tunnels. 10 meters. Kethlar drew his blade. The weapon emerged from its sheath with the softest whisper of metal against synthetic sheath material. The crowd around him continued their conversations, unaware that death had just been unleashed in their midst. Kethlar raised the blade slightly, its edge catching the overhead lighting and throwing rainbow patterns across the nearby wall. 5 meters. His muscles coiled for the killing strike. That was when the human stepped into his path. The creature was small even by human standards, barely 5.5 feet tall, with brown hair and wearing the simple blue jumpsuit of a station maintenance worker. She looked up at Kethlar with eyes the color of Earth's sky, her expression curious rather than fearful. "Excuse me," she said in perfectly accented Galactic standard, "but you're about to make a terrible mistake." Kethlar froze. In 30 years of hunting across the galaxy, no one had ever detected his approach. His species was virtually invisible when they chose to be, their movements so precise and controlled that even other predators rarely noticed them until it was too late. Yet this tiny human had not only seen him coming, but had recognized what he intended to do. "Move aside, creature," he hissed, his voice barely above a whisper. "This does not concern you." The human didn't move. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying his face with those impossibly blue eyes. "You're hunting Merchant Vextai because someone paid you to eliminate him. The consortium, I'd guess, based on your choice of weapon and the timing of your approach. Very professional, by the way. I almost didn't spot you until you drew that beautiful blade." Kethlar's forearms went completely still. She knew the target's name. She knew who had hired him. Most impossibly of all, she had seen through his hunting technique, something that even trained military operatives from warrior species had failed to do. "Who are you?" he demanded. The human smiled, and for the first time in his adult life, Kethlar felt something he had thought himself incapable of feeling: uncertainty. "My name is Sarah Chen," she replied calmly, "and I'm someone who knows that if you take another step toward that Thraxian, you're going to have a very bad day." Around them, the crowd continued to flow, oblivious to the confrontation taking place in their midst. The Thraxian merchant had moved further away, disappearing behind a group of cetacean traders. Kethlar's perfect moment was slipping away with each passing second, but he found himself unable to move. There was something about this human that triggered every instinct he had. Not his hunting instincts, but the much older, deeper ones that warned of genuine danger. "You threaten me?" he asked, his voice gaining strength. "You are barely the size of my arm. I have killed beings 10 times your mass." "I'm not threatening you," Sarah said, her tone remaining perfectly pleasant. "I'm trying to save your life. You see, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I am Kethlar of the 12th Nest, Shadow of Zephyr, yes, I know. Very impressive reputation. 47 confirmed kills across 12 systems. Never caught. Never even identified by law enforcement. Quite an achievement." She paused, her head tilting the other way. "But you've never hunted on a station where humans run security." Kethlar's mandibles clicked nervously. "Humans are not warriors. You are prey species, small, weak, slow. Your homeworld has no large predators. You evolved from creatures that gathered fruits and built tools." "That's true," Sarah agreed. "We did evolve from gatherers. But you're making the same mistake that a lot of species make when they first encounter humans. You're assuming that evolution stops when you reach the stars." Something in her tone made Kethlar's skin crawl. He glanced around the concourse, suddenly seeing it with new eyes. The humans weren't just moving randomly through the crowd. They were positioned at strategic points throughout the area. Station maintenance workers, food vendors, even what he had taken for ordinary passengers. All of them human, all of them watching. "You see," Sarah continued, "humans might not have been persistence hunters on Earth, but we became persistence hunters among the stars. We don't chase our prey across savannas. We chase them across systems. We don't track them by broken grass and scattered droppings. We track them through financial records and communication intercepts, and when we find our prey..." She shrugged. "Well, let's just say that human patience makes most species very uncomfortable." Kethlar's grip tightened on his blade. "You have been hunting me?" For 6 months now. Ever since you killed that Rigelian family on Kepler Station. The parents were fine. They were criminals after all. But the children... Sarah's pleasant expression didn't change, but something cold flickered behind her eyes. Humans get very upset when someone kills children. The pieces began falling into place in Kethler's mind. The anonymous tip that had forced his target to change routes. The convenient crowd in the main concourse. The perfect positioning for what should have been an ideal kill. He had been herded here like livestock, every step of his plan anticipated and accounted for. The atmospheric processing issue, he said slowly, was us, yes. We needed you in a controlled environment. The target is perfectly safe. In fact, Merchant Vextai is probably enjoying a complimentary drink in the VIP lounge right about now, completely unaware that he was ever in danger. Kethlar looked around the concourse again. Kethlar had faced death before. He had stalked through the crystal forests of Altair 7th while pack hunters circled him in the darkness. He had survived 3 days in the acid rainstorms of Theta Centauri with nothing but his blade and his wits. He had even escaped from a maximum security prison on the war world of Kranak Prime by killing 2 guards and walking out through the front gate. But standing in the middle of a crowded space station concourse, surrounded by what appeared to be ordinary civilians going about their daily business, he felt more trapped than he ever had in his entire life. "You cannot hold me here," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "I have committed no crime on this station. Galactic law requires evidence of wrongdoing before detention." Sarah nodded approvingly. "Very good. You know your legal rights." "That's smart. Most professional killers don't bother learning about due process. It shows you're thinking long-term rather than just focusing on the immediate job." She gestured around them with one small hand. "But here's the thing about human law enforcement that most species don't understand. We don't just catch criminals. We prevent crimes." A chill ran down Kethlar's spine. "Prevention is not the same as prosecution." "No, it's not," Sarah agreed. "Prevention is much more efficient. Take your current situation, for instance. We know you were hired to kill Merchant Vextai. We know who hired you. We know how much they're paying you. We even know what you plan to do with the money. That little nest you're building on Proxima Colony for your retirement years is quite charming. By the way." Kethlar's mandibles clicked involuntarily. His financial arrangements were hidden behind layers of encryption that should have been impossible to penetrate. The nest on Proxima was registered under 3 different false identities, purchased through intermediaries who didn't even know his real name. "How?" he whispered. "Humans are very good at patterns," Sarah explained. "We've been watching the consortium's activities for years, mapping their financial networks, tracking their hired assets. When Merchant Vextai started undercutting their prices in the Rigel sector, we knew they'd send someone after him. When that someone turned out to be the assassin who killed a family with children," she shrugged. "Well, that made it personal." A cetacean family moved past them, their massive forms requiring the smaller species to step aside. Kethlar considered making a break for it, using the confusion to disappear into the crowd. But as he watched, he noticed that the humans in the area shifted slightly, maintaining their positions relative to him no matter how the crowd flowed around them. They moved like a school of fish or a flock of birds, individual units acting as part of a larger organism. "You study us," he said. "My species. You know how we hunt." "We study everyone," Sarah replied. "That's what humans do. We learn. Zephyrians are fascinating, actually. Your stealth capabilities are among the best we've encountered. Your blade work is practically an art form, and your patience is legendary. In many ways, you're perfect predators." Despite himself, Kethlar felt a surge of pride. His species had dominated their home world for millions of years, and their reputation as hunters was feared throughout the galaxy. "But," Sarah continued, You have one critical weakness that we've learned to exploit, which is you hunt alone. Before Kethalar could respond to that, Sarah touched something on her wrist, a small device that looked like ordinary human jewelry but was obviously some kind of communicator. Status report. Voices began responding immediately, coming from all around the concourse. The maintenance worker by the air recycling unit. North exit secure. The food vendor selling Andromedan pastries. East corridor clear. The passenger reading a data pad near the transportation hub. South passage monitored. One by one, every human in the area checked in, their voices calm and professional. Kethalar counted at least 20 distinct speakers, and those were just the ones within earshot. For all he knew, there were dozens more throughout the station. You see, Sarah said, lowering her wrist, Zephyrians evolved on a world where stealth and individual skill were paramount. You learned to be invisible, to strike without warning, to kill efficiently and escape cleanly. It's a perfect hunting strategy for your environment. A group of Andromedan tourists approached, chattering excitedly in their musical language as they examined their shopping purchases. Kethalar stepped aside to let them pass, and noticed that Sarah moved with him, maintaining the same distance and position. It was such a small thing, but it spoke to a level of coordination that sent another chill through his exoskeleton. But humans, Sarah continued, evolved differently. We learned to cooperate. A single human couldn't bring down a mammoth, but 50 humans working together could. One human couldn't survive a blizzard, but a tribe sharing resources and knowledge could make it through the winter. We became the only species on our planet that actively helped unrelated individuals for the good of the group. Pack behavior, Kethalar said dismissively. Many species demonstrate this. No, not pack behavior. Packs are family groups, or at most extended relatives working together for genetic advantage. What humans developed was something unique, true social cooperation with complete strangers. We learned to trust people we'd never met, to sacrifice for people who weren't related to us, to work toward goals that might not benefit us personally, but would help our species as a whole. As if to demonstrate her point, a human child dropped a toy somewhere in the crowd behind them. Without even looking back, Sarah raised her hand and made a quick gesture. Immediately, 3 different humans moved to help the child locate the lost item, while 2 others redirected foot traffic to prevent the toy from being trampled. The entire operation took less than 30 seconds and was accomplished without a single word being spoken. When humans reached the stars, Sarah said, watching Kethalar's reaction, we brought that cooperation with us. We don't just catch criminals, we network them. Share information across systems, across jurisdictions, across species boundaries. A crime committed on one side of the galaxy becomes known on the other side within hours. The implications hit Kethalar like a physical blow. The Rigelian family. That was months ago, systems away from here. And within 6 hours of the discovery of their bodies, every human law enforcement officer in this sector knew your description, your methods, your preferred targets, and your likely escape routes. We've been tracking you ever since, waiting for the right moment. But this is not human space, Kethalar protested. This is neutral territory. You have no jurisdiction here. Sarah's smile returned, and this time there was definitely something predatory about it. That's the beautiful thing about human cooperation, Kethalar. We don't need official jurisdiction when we have willing partners. On cue, station security appeared at the edges of the concourse. But these weren't human officers. They were Thraxians, the same species as the merchant Kethalar had come to kill. Their blue skin was marked with the distinctive facial tattoos of station law enforcement, and their energy weapons were clearly visible at their sides. Station Commander Yexaral is Merchant Vextai's brother, Sarah explained conversationally. He was very interested to learn that someone was planning to murder a member of his family. Thraxians take family obligations quite seriously, as I'm sure you know. More security personnel became visible. Cetaceans, whose massive bulk could block entire corridors, Altarians, whose 4 arms made them excellent at restraining suspects, even a few Andromedans, whose empathic abilities made them perfect for detecting deception. It was a rainbow coalition of species, all working together, all focused on him. "How many?" Kethlar asked quietly. "On this station? About 40 officers from 12 different species. In this sector, several hundred. Across human space and allied territories." Sarah shrugged. "Several thousand, all sharing information, all watching for you." Kethalar's blade felt heavy in his hand. He had never faced odds like this, not just the immediate tactical situation, but the vast network of cooperation that had made it possible. Everywhere he went, every job he took, there would be someone watching, someone ready to share information with someone else. The galaxy had suddenly become much smaller and much more dangerous. "What do you want?" he asked. "That's entirely up to you," Sarah replied. "We have enough evidence to convict you of the murders on Kepler Station. That would mean spending the rest of your life in a maximum security facility, assuming the Rigelian government doesn't demand extradition for execution. Not a pleasant prospect for someone who values freedom as much as you do. Or you help us dismantle the consortium's assassination network. You know their methods, their contacts, their financial structures. Help us map their entire operation, testify against their leadership, and help us prevent future murders." Kethlar looked around the concourse one more time. 2 years later, Kethlar stood in the observation deck of the human cruiser, Determination, watching a convoy of consortium ships surrender to the joint task force that had surrounded them. His blade remained sheathed at his side, not the monomolecular killing tool he had once carried, but a ceremonial weapon marking his new position as senior tactical advisor to the Interspecies Criminal Investigation Unit. 43 ships, Sarah said, joining him at the viewport. She wore the uniform of a deputy director now, her promotion well earned after the success of what the media had dubbed the Consortium War. 12 different species, all working together under human coordination. 2 years ago, would you have believed it possible? Kethalar's mandibles clicked softly, a sound that Sarah had learned indicated amusement rather than aggression. 2 years ago, I would have called you insane. Cooperation between species on this scale was unthinkable. Each race had their own territories, their own laws, their own justice systems. The idea that they would willingly subordinate their sovereignty to catch criminals seemed impossible. And yet here we are. Here we are, Kethlar agreed, though I still do not fully understand how humans managed it. Sarah smiled. Over the past 2 years, she had come to appreciate the former assassin's directness. Most species danced around difficult questions, but Zephyrians asked exactly what they wanted to know. It made for refreshing conversations. "The same way we managed to convince you to join us," she said. "We made it in everyone's best interest to cooperate." The convoy below them was impressive by any standard. Ships from the Thraxian Defense Fleet worked alongside Cetacean patrol boats and Andromedan research vessels. Rigelian fighters flew escort for human cruisers. Even the normally isolationist Altarians had contributed 3 ships to the operation. It had taken 18 months to build the coalition that made this day possible. 18 months of careful diplomacy, shared intelligence, and patient relationship building. But the results spoke for themselves. The largest criminal organization in the galaxy was finally collapsing, its leadership either dead, captured, or fled to the darkest corners of uncharted space. The Andromedan Council was the key, Sarah continued, watching the surrendering ships. Once they agreed to share their empathic interrogation techniques, the other species realized how much more effective cooperation could be than working alone. Kethlar nodded. And the cetaceans' information networks provided the foundation for tracking financial crimes across multiple systems. Even I was impressed by the scope of their data collection. Don't forget the Thraxian legal framework, Sarah added. Without their diplomatic protocols, we never could have established jurisdiction across so many different territories. It was a familiar conversation between them, analyzing the complex web of relationships that had made their success possible. Kethlar found it fascinating from a purely intellectual standpoint. His species had always operated on the principle that strength came from individual excellence, but humans had proven that collective strength could surpass even the most skilled individual. "Director Chen," a voice said from behind them. They turned to see Commander Vexral, the Thraxian who had been Sarah's first ally in building the coalition. His blue skin bore the new scars that marked his service in the anti-consortium campaign, but his eyes held satisfaction. The last of the surrendering ships has been secured. All personnel are being processed according to the protocols we established. "Excellent," Sarah replied. "Any sign of Korthak or his inner circle?" "Negative. Intelligence suggests they escaped to the void sectors 3 days ago, beyond our current operational range." Kethlar's secondary eyes flickered with interest. The void sectors are lawless space. No government, no infrastructure, no support networks. If Korthak has fled there, he will not survive long. "Don't be so sure," Sarah said thoughtfully. "Humans have a saying, wounded animals are the most dangerous. Korthak might be finished as a galactic crime lord, but he could still cause a lot of damage before the end." Commander Vexral's head crest rose in what humans had learned was a sign of agreement among his species. "My intelligence officers report increased mercenary activity in the outer systems. Random attacks, supply raids, revenge killings against former associates. Classic behavior for a collapsing criminal organization." "Which means our work is not finished," Kethlar observed. "The network is broken, but the individual elements remain dangerous." Sarah nodded. "That's why I asked you both here. The Coalition Council has approved the next phase of operations. We're going to expand beyond just fighting organized crime." She activated a holographic display that filled the observation deck with a 3-dimensional map of local space. Red dots marked known criminal activities, yellow indicated suspected operations, and blue showed areas under coalition protection. "The success of our anti-consortium campaign has proven that interspecies cooperation works," Sarah explained, "but crime doesn't exist in a vacuum. It thrives where legitimate authority is weak, where different species can't or won't work together, where information doesn't flow freely between jurisdictions." The map zoomed in on a cluster of systems near the galactic rim. "These are the frontier territories, 73 systems with mixed populations, overlapping territorial claims, and no unified government. Crime rates are 3 times the galactic average and getting worse every year." Kethlar studied the display with professional interest. "Many species, little communication between them, minimal law enforcement infrastructure. Perfect hunting ground for predators of all kinds." "Exactly. And if we don't do something about it, the frontier will become the breeding ground for the next consortium." Sarah looked at both of them. "I want to establish permanent coalition bases in 12 key systems, not just law enforcement, full infrastructure support, medical facilities, communication networks, educational programs, economic development initiatives, everything necessary to build stable, cooperative societies." Commander Vexral's head crest flattened against his skull, a sign of concern. "That would require unprecedented cooperation between species, not just sharing information or coordinating operations, but actually building integrated societies. Many of my people would view that as cultural contamination, and many humans would see it as imperial overreach," Sarah admitted. "But that's exactly why it has to be done as a true coalition effort. No single species in charge, no cultural dominance, no economic exploitation, equal partners working toward mutual benefit." Kethlar was quiet for a long moment, his primary eyes focused on the star map, while his secondary eyes watched Sarah's face. Finally, he spoke. "You are describing something that has never existed before. True integration between species, not just cooperation. Shared colonies, mixed populations, combined governments. The social complexity alone would be staggering." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "It would be the most ambitious project in galactic history, and it might fail completely. But if it works," she gestured at the display, "we could create something new. Not human space or Thraxian space or cetacean space, but truly shared space. Places where different species aren't just allies of convenience, but genuine partners building something better than any of them could achieve alone." The three of them stood in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the coalition fleet organize itself for the journey home. Ships from a dozen different worlds moved in perfect coordination, their crews working together with an efficiency that would have been unimaginable just a few years before. "There is something you should know," Kethlar said eventually. "I have been in contact with others of my kind. Word of our success has reached Zephyr Prime, and there is interest in what we have accomplished here." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Interest? My species has spent millennia believing that strength comes only from individual excellence, but watching human cooperation in action, seeing the results you have achieved through collective effort." Kethlar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "There are those among the younger generation who wonder if we have been limiting ourselves unnecessarily." Commander Vexeral's head crest rose with surprise. "Zephyrians considering cooperation? That would be remarkable. Your people have been isolationists for as long as anyone can remember." "Not isolationists," Kethlar corrected. "Individualists. We have always believed that depending on others makes you weak. But humans have proven that cooperation can make you stronger than any individual effort. It is a disturbing revelation for a species that has prided itself on independence." Sarah nodded, understanding. "Change is never easy, especially when it challenges fundamental beliefs. But it's not about abandoning what makes each species special. It's about combining those special qualities to create something greater." She turned back to the star map. "Zephyrian stealth and tactical skills, combined with Thraxian legal expertise and cetacean information networks and human coordination abilities. Imagine what we could accomplish in the frontier with that kind of integrated approach." "You would have Zephyrians working openly with other species?" Kethlar asked. "My people value their privacy highly. I would have Zephyrians doing what they do best, gathering intelligence, neutralizing threats, protecting the innocent, but as part of a team instead of as lone operators. Your skills would be magnified, not diminished, by cooperation." Kethlar looked down at his ceremonial blade, then back at the coalition fleet. 2 years ago, I thought cooperation was weakness. Now I have seen that isolation is the true weakness. Very well, Sarah Chen. If you believe that mixed societies can work in the frontier, then I will help you prove it." Commander Vexral's head crest rippled with colors that indicated deep emotion. "And I will convince the Thraxian Council to commit resources to the project. My brother Vextai has prospered greatly under coalition protection. That success will speak louder than any diplomatic arguments." Sarah smiled, feeling the same satisfaction she had experienced that day on the mining station when she first convinced a legendary assassin to consider a different path. "Then let's begin planning humanity's next great experiment in cooperation. Not just catching criminals this time, but building the kind of galaxy where crime becomes irrelevant because everyone has something better to do." As the coalition fleet began its journey home, carrying the last remnants of the consortium's criminal empire to face justice, 3 representatives of different species stood together in the observation deck of a human ship, planning the future of interspecies civilization. Behind them, the stars waited. Billions of worlds where millions of different species pursued their own separate destinies. But ahead of them lay something unprecedented in galactic history, the possibility that those separate destinies might become a shared one. And at the center of it all, the species that had turned cooperation into an art form continued to do what they had always done best, bringing others together to accomplish what none of them could achieve alone. The predator had drawn his blade and stepped back from a human. In doing so, he had learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from standing apart, but from joining together. His trap was perfect, the odds impossible, the cooperation between species unprecedented in his experience. But there was something else, something that troubled him even more than the immediate tactical situation. "Why offer me a choice at all?" he asked. "Why not simply arrest me and extract the information through interrogation?" Sarah's expression grew serious for the first time since the conversation had started. "Because humans learned something else during our evolution, something that separates us from every other predator species in the galaxy. We learned that cooperation works better than coercion. A willing ally is always more effective than a broken enemy." She paused, then added quietly, "Besides, everyone deserves a chance to choose who they want to be, even someone who's made the choices you've made. The question is, who do you want to be from now on?" Kethler stared down at his blade, its monomolecular edge still gleaming in the station's artificial light. 47 confirmed kills, 30 years of perfect hunting. A reputation that had made him one of the most feared assassins in the galaxy, all of it meaningless now in the face of something he had never encountered before, a species that had weaponized cooperation itself. Slowly, very slowly, he began to lower his blade. Now that he knew what to look for, the trap was obvious. The humans had turned his own hunting ground into their web, and he was caught in the center of it like an insect in silk. "What happens now?" he asked. Sarah's smile widened, showing teeth that suddenly seemed much sharper than they had moments before. "Now," she said, "you learn why humans spent 10,000 years at the top of their food chain without ever being the biggest, strongest, or fastest predator on their planet.